The Shooting Range. In this episode, Pages of History, the main Japanese tank in World War II. Map Guide, a tour around the Hilly Kuban. And Metal Beasts, the export British MBT. Today we'll continue telling you about machines that have been in the game for a while. Please welcome the British tank called the VickersMBT, with a battle rating of 7.7. This machine was created during the early 1960s as a budget MBT targeted at export. Its 105mm two-plane stabilized gun has elevation angles between -7 and +20 degrees. In addition, the tank has 2 machine guns and smoke grenades. The layout is classic. The driver sits in the front, the other 3 crew members in the turret, with the engine compartment in the rear. As for the ammo racks, they are spread out throughout the entire combat compartment. The Vickers' main advantage is its armament. The 105mm gun has 2 types of rounds available, HESH and APDS. We recommend you go for the latter since they can go through 300mm of steel at point-blank range. That's enough to damage even the heaviest enemy, even if you don't aim for their vulnerabilities. Moreover, that firepower is augmented by a 2-axis stabilizer, which is a rare sight among early MBTs. You might think there's a catch, like a long reload? No, sir. An ace crew is capable of sending an APDS round of the enemy every 5 seconds. But you're right, there is a catch. Survivability. While the gun's mantlet armor might deflect a stray round, the hull, well, to put it simply, you'd better avoid enemy sights. Thankfully, the Vickers' comparatively low mass grants it a decent level of mobility. It won't be able to keep up with light tanks, but it won't lag behind the main forces either. At the beginning of a battle, there are a number of tactics you can employ. First, you can find a bypass to occupy a position at a distance from the main battlefield. You'll find this tank's ballistics good enough to enable successful hits at distances of up to 2 kilometers. And thanks to a high reverse speed along with the stabilizer, you can leave your cover cheekily, shoot while driving, and duck back to cover in no time. There's another riskier tactic. Go straight to the center of the map to catch your enemy unaware. Just don't go too deep. Find a good position and surprise your enemy with a round-in-the-face technique. There's one little trick here. If you want to one-shot your enemies, aim for the hull. This way, your round will damage more modules. If you need to retreat, remember your smokes. 12 grenades will ensure your enemies will not see you. World War II Japan was famous for its Navy and Air Force. In the Pacific, tanks obviously had a minor role and hence received much less attention. Still, it would be unfair for us to ignore it, since the Land of the Rising Sun had created a completely unique approach to tank building. The Type 97 Chi-Ha medium tank produced a whole family of armored vehicles and played a significant role in the war. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. During 1936, Japan needed a new medium tank to replace the hopelessly outdated Type 89. The task was to keep the gun and improve both armor and mobility. It was Mitsubishi who prepared the Kai-Ha medium tank project, but the military weren't interested in it at first. They were thinking about something simpler and cheaper, but soon enough the war with China began. So the project found its way into production. The Type 97 received a fuel-efficient air-cooled diesel engine and a great suspension by Tomohara that provided good stability and driving smoothness. To improve handling, The engineers implemented a two-stage turning mechanism. To compare, the only Soviet production tank with that system was the IS. Of course, the Chiha wasn't flawless. The battles of Khalkhin Gol proved that the Soviet 45mm gun was much better than the 57mm stub it had. It also had poorer sights, and radio was only available to commanders' machines. The engineers solved these problems in the Chiha Kai, also known as the Shinhoto Chiha. It had a new turret and a new 47mm gun with better ballistics. Moreover, the new turret could be installed onto the previous model. During 1940, the Type 97 was replaced with a new machine under the name of Chihi. This time, the engineers simplified the hull shape, increased the armor to 50mm, and replaced the obsolete rivets with more practical welding. This resulted in a heavier machine, but thanks to a new engine, the mobility remained just as high. Moreover, all the new Chi-He tanks had radios. The Chi-He also had an artillery modification, the Ho-E, armed with a 75mm gun. These two machines worked well together as a main tank and a fire support machine, much like the German Panzer III and Panzer IV. The Chi-He shortened the gap between Japanese and European tank building, although it was far from taking the lead. Due to being an archipelago, Japan put most of its resources into its Navy and Air Force, and with tanks requiring a lot of metal, mass production wasn't an option. Even the original production plans, albeit modest, could not be fulfilled. For instance, the 1943 plan implied building 1,800 tanks, while in fact only 750 were made. To compare, the United States made more than 29,000 tanks annually. Still, despite these limits, the Japanese engineers showed a lot of ingenuity and managed to create a completely unique approach to tank building. But that's a story for another time. Today, we'll review another ground forces map in War Thunder, and this time it's the Hilly Kuban. Let's skip the description and start with the North Team tactics straight away. We'll begin with Point C. Don't rush to the capture area. The wooden houses can be shot through, which increases your chances of seeing the hangar screen earlier than you'd like. We recommend that you occupy a hill nearby. With a light or medium tank, you'll get there earlier than your enemy, which will provide you with a perfect view on the enemy's approach to Point C. Once you make sure the first wave of tanks is defeated, you can capture the point yourself or head toward shot spots around points A and B. If your team's forces are spread unevenly around the map, you can use the road that goes under the bridge to get closer to the center of the map. Next, Point B. Getting there from the eastern spawn point won't be a problem, since most of the path goes along hills that protect you from enemy fire. You're unlikely to capture the area right away, but giving it up with no fight is not a worthy option either. You can wait for your allies to arrive or for your enemy to expose themselves. A useful position is found in Square B3. The best machine for this area is a tank with a sturdy turret and good elevation angles. If you peek from the hill, you can control Point A, the bypass road, and the approaches to the center of the map. Finally, the most important position for the East team is the road to B2. This is where the major forces of both teams usually meet up. Avoiding a frontal collision is tough in such a narrow place, so it poses a high risk for thinly armored or lightly armored machines. Still, the winner gets across to the enemy respawn point, which is an advantage that can shift the tide of the battle. Now, how about the South team? We'll start with Point C once again. The safest route to it is from Square E5. This way you can avoid the danger coming off that hill we mentioned earlier. The best way to gain control over it is to flank the enemy from the rear, square E6. Having done that, you'll get access to the central part of the map as well as approaches to point C. Now, the next position is found in square E4. It's very easy to reach, just follow the road from the spawn point and turn left before the bridge. Here, you'll be able to block the road to point B, and if you manage to destroy the enemy, even capture it yourself. Next, the already familiar road in square B2. The advice here mirrors the opposing team: thick armor and heavy weapons. The final position for today, or more like an area, is found in the hollows between points A and B. Light and quick tanks can slip through before the enemy gets to the shot spot in square B3. There are two paths to take after the dangerous area. Flank the enemy on either A or B. That's everything we wanted to share with you about Kuban today. Now it's time to answer some of your questions. The first question was sent by a player called Ray Animus. Why was the Archer built with a backwards turret? Hi Ray, such an unusual layout allowed the machine to roll back into cover right after the shot, or change the position with no time wasted on turning. Nick the Gamer asks, how can I see my replays? Hi there. It's pretty simple. Open the menu, go to Community, Replays, find the battle you want to see, and press View Replay. Another question comes from Johanren Campanile. What is the difference between inline and radial engines in piston planes, and which one is superior? Hello, Johan. Inline liquid-cooled engines generally have a lower survivability, with any damage to the cooling system leading to a quick overheat. They were much cheaper to produce, though, and had better aerodynamics. Nico no Nanadesu writes, what is the Challenger 2 and 2F playstyle? Hi there. Go for one of the central directions once you start the battle, since a lower mobility makes flanking simply impossible. And remember the Challenger's biggest advantage, the thick turret armor. Try to find a position where most of your hull is hidden from the enemy. And the last comment for today was written by Amir K. Ahari. Can you make a video for the BF-109 family or the FW-190 family? There are so many of them. Hi there, Amir. It's a good idea. Perhaps not in the next episode, but we're certainly going to review these famous fighters. Wow, how time flies. That's it for today already. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell, of course you know what I'm going to say next, if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to leave a like, because you do, yes. Share your thoughts and comments, and we'll see you next week.